Hi, everyone, and welcome. We're going to give everyone just a minute or so to start joining us. I'm sure everyone's running to their screens now. So we'll give everyone another 30 seconds and we'll go ahead and kick off. As you join, if you can drop in where you're joining us from, we'll give you a nice little shout out. It'd be good to see where everyone is coming in from. Let's see. Everyone's shy this morning or afternoon. All right. All right, I guess we can get started. Jen, hi Jen. Currently in San Antonio. Fantastic. Thanks for joining us on your travels. All right. Hi everyone. Thank you for joining us. In the spirit of inclusivity and accessibility, some of us may provide a self-description with our introductions. My name is Viviana Bernabe. I will be moderating today's session. I am a Latina woman with long dark hair, and I am wearing a black sweater. We have an exciting session, but before we get started, I do want to remind you to sign up for GALA's Interpreting and Technology SIG. We hold regular meetings every other month where we discuss anything and everything interpreting and spoken and sign language access. If you are attending GALA Montreal in just over 2 weeks, oh my goodness, we're only 2 weeks away. Make sure you get there early. We have our Interpreting SIG unconference session on Sunday the 13th. Unfortunately, my co-moderator Aki isn't able to join us, but you can catch her moderating the conference. And I know we have at least one of our panelists also speaking at 2 sessions during the conference, and we'll touch on that later on. Today, I have the pleasure of moderating a very special Women's History Month session featuring some incredible women paving the way for others in the interpreting sector. I cannot do enough justice to the reputations our panelists have earned, so I'm going to hand over the mic to our panelists to introduce themselves. Alison, please kick us off.
Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to do that. And thank you so much for inviting me here. I feel quite flattered and a little bit overawed by being described in such glowing terms. So my name is Alison Graves, and as Viviana kicked us off, I have got short blonde hair. I'm wearing a light grey jacket, and I'm sitting in front of a European flag because my role is as Director for Interpretation in the European Parliament. I'm joining you this afternoon from a very sunny Brussels, and I mention that because that's not always the case. And my role is to ensure that we can provide high quality conference interpreting for the European Parliament, which is the most multilingual, democratically elected parliament in the world. It's a big job. It's a great honor. We have 24 official languages, and often we work with more. So as you can imagine, it's quite a complex task, but one I feel very privileged and proud to carry on.
So much, Alison. Mila, please.
Well, thank you for having me. And I have brown hair. I'm Caucasian female. I'm wearing a black and white sweater. And my role is I'm the founder and the CEO of MasterWord Services. I guess this year marks 33 years of me being in the industry, something like that. And we're a language services company provider. We work with over 400 languages. We do a lot of work with marginalized languages. And I've been in language advocacy for many years as well. Couple noteworthy projects is Mayan Languages Digitization and Revitalization Project that we started in 2023. And additionally, I'm on one of the founding members, together with Natalya Mytareva, who's also a founding member of Safe AI, stakeholders advocating for fair and ethical AI in interpreting. Thank you for having me.
Natalya, please.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here today with my amazing counterparts here. My name is Natalya Mytareva. I am physically in Akron, Ohio, United States, but originally I'm from the Russian Federation. My colors are yellow and blue, and currently I'm the executive director of the Certification Commission for Healthcare Interpreters. We are a national organization in the United States that administers certification performance-based credentials for interpreters in healthcare and interpreters of all languages. We are the only accredited organization of language certifying entities. And since our inception in 2009, we have certified over 8,500 healthcare interpreters with currently, 5,300 active credential holders. I also serve on the board of the National Commission for Certifying Agencies, NCCA, that accredits certification programs for all professionals. I'm always proud of starting in the United States as a manager of interpreting and translation services for a refugee resettlement agency. That's something that defined me. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm just looking forward to our conversation.
Amazing. Thank you, ladies, so much. I'm honored to just be in the same space with you. But no one wants to hear me keep talking. So let's get started. Some of us, like myself, came into the language industry by chance, while others are drawn to the artistry of linguistics early on. How did you get your start in the interpreting sector, Natalya?
All right. Well, for me, it was fascination with the idea of learning a language that is not your native to the native speaker level, and that fascination started in middle school when my English teacher said, "Oh, you're a very diligent student, but you will never be able to speak English at the native speaker level because you just don't have the talent for it." Well, don't throw a challenge at me. Please don't, because I will overcome it. And so I, went to study at Volgograd State University with my, got master's in philology and started doing some business and conference interpreting as long as teaching at the university interpreting and translation. And when I moved here to the United States in 1996, I was fascinated to discover that anyone could just say, "Hey, I speak this language and I want to be an interpreter." And to me, that felt so enlightening in terms of like, it's wow, so amazing, but at the same time so wrong, right? And that's when I just like realized that actually there are many paths, and I have wonderful colleagues over the years that have come here because they just wanted to help the community, and they're no different in competence than some of us who studied it formally. And that's kind of what makes me still being in love with our profession.
That's fantastic. We love a good success story. I hope you send an annual holiday
No,
card.
I did tell her that. Well, when I graduated from my university with honors, I was like, well, at least I have the honors from the master. So, and then, when I moved here, yes, I did connect with that teacher.
Oh
She's
my goodness.
proud of me.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Mila, please tell us how did you get your start?
Well, I've always loved languages. Languages was I also grew up in the Soviet Union and behind the Iron Curtain, the same way. And language was always a way of it was kind of like a window to the other side of the world. Through the language, you could find out what else was going on. And I was determined to be an interpreter, but then when I graduated high school, I said, well, you know what? I really want to study finance. And why don't we study finance? So when I was able to come to this country, and I came as in 1989, I had the opportunity, and I graduated with a degree in finance and entrepreneurship, and I did my very first internship. I said, well, you know what? I really do not like this job with every fiber of myself. And I was paying my way through school interpreting. And actually, I actually ended up re-enrolling into the Masters of Entrepreneurship program and started my business as part of the homework assignment, which was kind of create your business, because I had no idea how to build a business. So I ended up in the entrepreneurship class. The project was my homework assignment, and here we are 32 years later. And I love every moment. I love languages. I love what languages do. And to me, language is a window into the hearts and the soul of another culture.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Mila. Alison.
Yeah, thank you. I can only say I share that sentiment. It's making me feel quite emotional, actually, this idea of the window into the soul of another country. That's a beautiful thing to say. I grew up in the north of England, and I can honestly say that I didn't know interpreting existed when I was at school. I had no idea that it was a thing, let alone a profession or something that I could even do. And I studied languages at university, still in the north of England, because that's what I liked. I liked talking, basically. And I liked this idea of communication. And it was only when I went to France to work as an English teacher that I discovered that the European Parliament had a building in Strasbourg, the city where I was working as a teacher. And I went and sat in the debating chamber, and for the first time in my life, heard and saw conference interpreters working. And I will never forget the moment sitting there and listening to these different languages and working out what they were doing. And it just felt like magic. It was this amazing thing that was happening, and I was so excited by it. But then again, I never thought this is something for me. I thought these were kind of mythical creatures that came from somewhere else who had this amazing skill. And it was only when I was in my final year at university that I finally discovered a master's program in interpreting and translating. And it was as of then that I thought, this is it. I found the thing that I really want to do. So did the master's program. And as usual, was a little bit of a slow starter, didn't kind of take to it immediately, was trying to work out how to do it. So it did take me a little while to get going. And Natalya's story about you don't have the talent kind of struck a chord with me. So it took me a while to find my talent, but clearly did, because 35 years later, here I am, having had a long and successful career as a conference interpreter, now as a manager. And I went back to my university where I did my master's program for their 50th anniversary, and I was the keynote speaker. And in the audience was my course director, who didn't exactly say that I didn't have the talent, but definitely thought it. And I started my speech saying how I was honored to be there and a little bit surprised to be there, but not as surprised as the man sitting on the third row who never thought I would amount to anything. So that's just to say, you know, believe in yourself. And when you know what you want, work hard and do it. And just a little thing that I would like to add, I really got my start by somebody believing in me and just pushing me a little bit in the right direction, pushing me to have the confidence to take that first accreditation test and to start work. And if it hadn't been for that person, I don't know if this would have happened. So I've always made it my mission, if I can be that person to push somebody else, to give them the little thing that they need, then I will be.
If you see tears, these are tears of happiness and joy on your behalfs. Those are incredible starts of your journeys. And Alison, I'm going to stay with you because this is a great segment into our next question on last month, this SIG hosted a webinar on preparing the next generation of interpreting professionals for future roles. What guidance would you have liked to have received from a mentor in your early 20s?
Yeah, that is actually a really interesting question. And I've thought about that various times over the years. What do I wish I'd known? When I started working as an interpreter, I was having a lot of fun. I mean, you learn so much, and it's hard. It's a long, hard journey. So at the beginning, you're very much taken by that. But actually, I wish somebody had told me to take myself a bit more seriously and to think about a career because I didn't. I was thinking about what I was doing now, that I was having fun. I was lucky enough to find a role in in an institution, which kind of sounds like a negative thing, but it's not, but an institution that gave me lots of opportunities. And I didn't really have to think about, where was my next paycheck coming from, because I wasn't working as a freelance, as many interpreters do. But in retrospect, I wish I had done a master's in public administration. I wish I'd learnt earlier what it meant to work in a big political institution like this, because I think I could have made now a greater contribution to the institution if I'd done that earlier in my career. So I would say it's study, learn things. I picked up expertise in lots of different areas, but I should have thought a little bit wider and kind of broadened my academic credentials. That's what I wish I'd done. But I'm fine. It worked out fine anyway. But if I'd had advice, that's what I would have liked to have had.
Having a mentor is not, picking a good mentor is a tricky task. Natalya, what would you have liked to receive as guidance in your early 20s?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to continue what Alison started because I feel the same way that when you start, you are thinking more about diving into your profession, getting things right so that you're confident, and that is important. But what I would also encourage everyone to just come up for air because you need to get out of what you're doing daily, of how great you are becoming, to see what else is out there. And I've done it a couple of times in my life. My most recent one was in the, you know, 2020 during the pandemic, where I decided to learn R, which is a programming language for statistical computing and data visualization. Has nothing to do seemingly with interpreting. And then, previously, about 15 years ago, I had this, passion for discovering post-processing and editing of audio files. And then 2023 came in, and Mila and I, and a couple of other brilliant people decided that we need to do something about, ethical and human-driven interpreting opportunities, and founded the Safe AI Task Force. And that learning about generative AI, etc., all that previous knowledge that seemed to have nothing to do with interpreting tied back in, right? And I would not have pursued some opportunities to participate in the discussions about AI if I hadn't felt that I have some expertise to it. But my second advice, I want to give actual not to the 20-year-olds, but to the 30 and 40-year-olds, is to be deliberate about remaining humble. I think that, to me at least, being humble doesn't mean that you should not grow, you should not dare to do new things. It means that we need to acknowledge our errors and not be afraid of making those errors. Because I think what keeps us within our self-imposed limitations is that fear of, doing something wrong. And if you are not humble, you will be kept by that, arrogance of like, well, I know everything, I can do everything. But as soon as you deliberately cultivate that feeling, that state of mind, you understand that there are so many things that you could still learn and you could still do. And so it's very hard because you get invited to be keynote speakers, right? You think you get invited to a panel like this and you think like, well, I am it, right? Well, yeah, but listening to Alison, to Mila, I'm like, well, I don't know what I'm doing here. But so that kind of state of mind, that what makes you perpetually hungry, because only those who are hungry will actually seek something and get it. And that's what's important for us as women, is to never settle for that comfort. That's very nice, but don't do that, especially when you're in your 30s and 40s and you think like you have reached the peak of your career. You haven't. You have like 40 more years to do so. I'm always fascinated for people, and that's kind of my next, self-learning thing is who started writing and publishing novels in their 60s. That's my goal. So I'll let you all know about my first novel that hopefully will come out in maybe 2-3 years. That's my next thing. So anyway, Mila, I think you will be next.
Right. Well, I'll start with advice I received from my amazing mentor, Bill Sherrill, who started his career as a middle school dropout and joined World War II as a soldier lying about his age. And then from no middle school diploma, he graduated with honors from Harvard, went on to become the governor of the Federal Reserve and the head of FDIC in the United States. And his advice to students in the entrepreneurship class was ready, fire, aim, as opposed to ready, aim, fire. If you're trying to get it perfect all the time, you'll be dead in the battlefield. But if you just fire and try, then you have chances of making it. And I have approached my life with a ready, fire, aim approach, and it's worked. My second advice would be have many mentors. Whatever you want to fire at or try, you won't know it. So get a mentor and have multiple mentors depending on where you are in your career, where you are in your life, and what questions you have. And my last advice would be to interpreters, actually interpreters who are here today and who are facing the future. Change always happens. And we are in the human communication industry. We're in the human understanding industry. We're in the building bridges industry. Transportation industry didn't go away. It grew exponentially. Nobody rides a horse to work today. Maybe a few people only. We now drive cars and today actually a lot of the work is virtual. But transportation didn't change. Communication won't change. So embrace AI as a tool. Your expertise lies beyond AI. Your expertise lies in being a subject matter expert in understanding human communication, that as much as there's talk in sci-fi, AI can never be human by default, same as humans can never be robots by default. And there is so much to communication that goes beyond words, that the human expertise is absolutely priceless and invaluable. There's always room for a human interpreter. There's always room for an expert interpreter. So embrace it. And this is a fantastic career opportunity. And this is a fantastic opportunity as a job. So I actually want to encourage more people coming into this profession.
Thank you. So we've talked about how you got your start, how you would have liked to have done a little bit things a little differently in earlier careers. But what has been the most challenging or rewarding experience in your journey that helped you get to where you are today? Mila, why don't we start with you?
Starting with me, well, as I'm going through that, I think the challenges never end, right? Change is the only constant, and part of it is constantly having challenges. So what I have come to accept is business has cycles. I actually look at it as seasons, because if I go back, every few years there is some kind of cycle, economic downturn that almost puts you out of business, or a COVID pandemic that almost puts everybody out of business. So the challenges are always there, but I want to tell people that it's actually challenge that helps us grow and drives innovation. So when you're in the middle of it, feeling like you have nothing else to give, and I was at one point, and I'll never forget that was in 1996, when we were heavily focused on the oil and gas business. And at that point, oil price went down to $10 a barrel, or pretty much nothing. Everything shut down. I had no other work opportunity, or I felt like there was nothing else. I did not know I could interpret anywhere else. And I was actually in a foreign country in Azerbaijan, which geographically is on the Caspian Sea, 2 hours north of Tehran. So completely unfamiliar part of the world for me. And I said, what do I have going for me? And the only thing I had going for me was I could still breathe because everything else has collapsed. And that was the most empowering thing because you can build up from that. Anything is better than that. And so I always keep back, I can still breathe. And that's empowering. So look at things as cycles and as an opportunity to innovate.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mila. We are witnessing the journey of a phoenix in front of us. It sounds like. Natalya, I see you unmuted. Why don't you go next?
Well, I think in this current career, I think everything for me started with my work with refugees. I worked there from 2000 to 2013 as first manager of communication services at a refugee resettlement agency called International Institute of Akron, that's in Ohio. And then I was refugee resettlement coordinator there for a short time. And experiencing their resilience and grit firsthand was my inspiration and driving force because I was an immigrant who chose to come to this country, who met my American husband, decided to, pursue, future in a new country. So I was prepared and I had a family to fall back. And these are individuals who are transported to a new country. And yeah, they hear a great story about the United States of America, at least at that time. And they discover how hard it is to start a new life, and yet they're fearless. And remember how I got so frustrated with some local healthcare providers who would call me and say, like, are you sure your Karen or Burmese interpreter really knows how to interpret? They would never call me about Spanish interpreters for that, or Hungarian or Russian, because those were the populations that were settled in this country and everyone knew more about them. And the emerging populations were so alien in many sense than one to the local community here that it felt very frustrating. I knew that my Quran interpreter was more qualified and more competent than a couple of my Spanish ones, and yet I still had to prove and explain them. And that's when I realized that unless there is an organization that has a fully recognized, nationally recognized accredited certification program that would give them the paper saying that they're certified to be medical interpreters. Until that happens, I'll be just spending hours on the phone call with each doctor in my city, explaining to them why they should trust this interpreter or not. And that was kind of 2007 when that big revelation came, and I sought and found a group of passionate enthusiasts who wanted to form such an organization. And I was one of the founding commissioners of CCHI. That's what we created. And it was purely volunteer efforts. I remember at some point we're thinking like, okay, I think we spend more hours volunteering than doing our day job, but that's how it all starts. And so that challenge of, if you see that something needs improvement or something doesn't exist, but you think it's important and needed, then just do it. Nobody else will do it for you. You just need to do it. And always remember that you're not alone. You're not the only bright one, right? That humbleness. You remember there are, hundreds of people around that you just need to connect with them. And nowadays, with Zoom and all the other, virtual opportunities, it just is. So easy, I think, to fix things in the world if we set our minds to it. So I do see like Mila challenges as something that allows us to grow, that gives us that strength to know that, okay, this is the worst. Now we can only go up. There is no way to go down anymore. So
That's fantastic. Thank you, Natalya. Alison.
Yeah, thanks. What's really interesting for me about this panel is how much we have in common, and this it's really touching me. I mean, we're all immigrants for a start. We've all moved away from home to go and challenge ourselves and live somewhere else. Some of us further than others, but we're all living in cultures that weren't originally our own. And that, I'm going to think about that because my biggest challenge also comes back to what both of our other speakers have said, this idea of adversity giving you opportunities and causing innovation. I started this job, my job was director, in January 2021. So right in the middle of COVID, in the middle of lockdowns. Our interpreting model has been big conference rooms with interpreters in booths in the conference rooms. And that was impossible during COVID. We couldn't bring people that close together. So we had to completely rethink our model. How were we going to provide interpretation, and how were we going to keep European democracy, multilingual democracy going? Because that was our challenge. And that was so hard. The first 2 years in this job was so hard. We had not only to deal with the technical challenges of making sure that we could interpret speakers who were remote. We had interpreters who were remote for the first time. But we had so many challenges with our staff and with our freelance interpreters who were afraid, who were uncertain, who didn't know what the future meant for them as interpreters and as professionals, but who were also afraid. We were all living in COVID. A lot of us are away from our families. It was such a challenging time. We had huge issues with auditory health, with people having issues with tinnitus and hyperacusis because of the conditions, linked to the conditions. This was a huge, huge problem. And I took it all very much on my shoulders and felt personally responsible, which, you know, I worked through. I know that I wasn't, but it felt very heavy. But I have really learned from that experience and grown through it, and realized that by connecting, by asking for help, by working with others, by finding solutions together, you can get through it. You do get through it. And when you come out the other side, it's something completely new. And I can see we've grown as an organization. We are more resilient. We are more adaptable. We have now gained the trust and confidence again of our staff, and we can do better and new things now because of that, because we've been through this experience together. So looking back, and it's not that far back, it was an extremely enriching experience, not one that I'd be happy to repeat, if I'm honest, because it was so tough. But I feel like I've grown hugely by having to do it, you know, by being in it and just having to get on with it. So I don't want to do that again, as I said, but it did teach me that we are stronger than we think, and we have more resources than we think. And I was thinking, really, what was it that helped me through it? And in the end, it was by making sure that I was surrounded by the people that I needed professionally. I've got an amazing small team here of women, as it happens, who I would trust with my life. And they are the ones who picked me up, who dusted me down, and who sent me back out there. And without them, I don't know if I'd be feeling the same way about that period as I do now. So really, it's that. It's not embrace the challenges, it's submit to the challenges, fight it, don't give in, but make sure that you have the right kind of support, because we all need something different. But I was so lucky to have these great women standing by my side, and without them, I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Alison, I really like to admit to the challenge as opposed to embrace the challenge. It has so much wisdom in it. So I thank you for saying that. I've just learned something.
We say it takes a community to raise a child, but that community needs to follow us into adulthood to keep supporting us as we go through life, which I think some of us realize is a little harder than being a child. I definitely need my community regularly. Let's move on to something maybe a little bit more fun. I know we had a little bit more fun on these topics during our pre-webinar meetings. This question comes up often around this time of year during Women's History Month. Just go flat out, and do you think there is an imbalance in women in leadership roles in an industry that is predominantly women? Natalya, I know you were really excited about this one, so why don't you kick us off?
Oh, if I remember correctly, we were all very excited about this one because of who we are, right? There's definitely an imbalance. I think we have found kind of a good balance at this point in the non-profit sector. If we look at our associations at the leadership at that level, we see women. We also see women in academia, a similar position in interpreting and translation world than that men. But at the same time, in industry that is lacking, and I know Mila has more to say about that. Um, and as a person who values knowledge and competence, my route and advice would be to overcome that imbalance, to get to do what Mila did. In other words, get into masters in finances, into MBA programs at the LIT University, so you are plugged into the networking right away and are an equal player from day one of your, progress. But also, I think we sometimes are just too comfortable with finding a very rewarding profession. Especially like I'm talking about healthcare interpreting, and liking it so much that we stay here too long. And we need to look at our profession, at our careers as a continuum. And we need to come up for air, as I said earlier, and discover what else is out there for us because. Oftentimes we are told that we're not as ambitious as men are, but it's not just about ambition. It's about this place of confidence where you know that you're the best, and nobody argues with that, regardless of who you are surrounded by. So I think, we need to make sure that we trust ourselves to become the best. Buddha supposedly said that there are two mistakes that one can make along the road to truth. One is not going all the way, and the other one is not starting. So I think our mistake often is not going all the way, and there is absolutely nothing that should hold us from that. However, I do believe there is a systemic structure that tries to stop us from going all the way. And I don't have a solution to that other than just continuing to poke in that structure and show that we can. It's bittersweet place right now. We know what we could be. We've had, prime ministers, we've had presidents, who are women. We have, millers who, own the companies, but it's still not common, recognition that we can. And I think we just need to continue remembering it, that each one of us paves the way for the next one. So I'll stop here because I know that Alison and Mila have more to say here, but it is a very, nerve-striking topic.
Well, I know this one hits close to home, so I'm gonna hold off and we'll move on to Alison to answer about the imbalance, and we'll come back to you. Alison, please.
Well, I'm certainly not going to disagree with Natalya. There is an imbalance. There absolutely is. And I'm sure that in the commercial world, it's even stronger. But I'm sitting, in quite a comfortable place. We're in an institution, it's a public institution. We have affirmative action. We have excellent working conditions. And in my directorate, which is all the interpreting staff, we are 69% women. So women dominate the workforce. In middle management, women are 55%. So from the outside, this is good. This is equal. Women have equal representation in middle management, but not matching the number of staff that we have. But in the parliament at senior management level and at the highest level, the decision makers are predominantly men. There are 36% women who are really in that top decision-making level. So my feeling and what I've seen is we make advances, we get quotas, we work towards the quotas, but they're so easily destabilized and taken away again once there is a change at the top, and the top is very often a man. And it's very easy. We can never stop fighting. And I'm always really disappointed when I hear women say, you know, I don't want to be part of a quota. I don't want to be part of affirmative action. I want to be taken on merit. I want us to stand up and show ourselves and be counted. I don't care if people think I'm part of a quota, and people do think I'm part of a quota, and I don't care, because I'm here and I'm doing it and I'm showing that I can. And more importantly, I'm showing our daughters that we can. And that for me is a real driving force, because if you don't see it, you don't think it's real. And I've got a really cute little story from a colleague, a German colleague. And during the years when Angela Merkel was Chancellor for a very long time, her 5-year-old son asked her whether men could be Chancellor. And that just shows how powerful this is. A Chancellor for him was a woman. And is it possible for a man? This is the question that 5-year-old girls are asking themselves all the time. Can a woman be President of the United States, for example? I mean, currently the answer is no. Sorry, didn't mean to go there. So it's that. I think we care, we have a role to play, we have to keep fighting. There is an imbalance, and there will be an imbalance for as long as we are not sitting there at the top table in equal numbers, and we are part of the decision making. And we know that it's not about us, it's not about women are better, women are cleverer, we want to have more power. It's about ensuring that we have that diversity of decision making, of thinking, that these different perspectives all put together, so that what we get is a society that's fair for everybody. It's not about women, it's about all of us. And as you can tell, I feel really strongly about this. But yeah, for me, you know, ambition in some languages is not a compliment. It's not a good thing to be ambitious, and particularly not if you're a woman. In some languages, ambition is a positive. In English, it's not necessarily. And being a woman and being ambitious is not seen to be necessarily a positive. But I think we just have to stand up and we have to show that we're there and we can do it, and other people can follow behind us, and that we will not only pave the way, but we'll give you a hand up while we're here.
That time to redefine in the dictionaries, for sure. Mila, please.
I have always believed that I can do anything. And I think that I greatly attribute it to my grandmother, who actually now, looking back, has always worked in kind of male-dominated professions. I attribute to the way she raised me. And recently I heard a quote that really resonated with me. It said, "There is no glass ceilings. Glass ceilings don't exist. It's just a very thick layer of men." And it was actually said in a TED talk. And I shared it during the rehearsal, everybody started laughing. And then suddenly, you step back and you look at it, and that is really true. And so since our rehearsal, I was really contemplating what's going on with our industry, because there's a huge imbalance. We are mostly predominantly women, and yet in the top 100, only 16 companies are women-led. And we're 80% women, maybe 70% women as an industry. And as an industry, we're very inclusive. As an industry, we represent great teamwork. So what happens? And one of the suggestions I want to throw out is what happens is the influence of the finance industry. If you go to a banking conference, you don't see women. If you go to a banking conference and banking world, the world is so dominated by men, it's not even funny. And so when private equity, when outside capital comes into our industry, they appoint who they're comfortable with, which are sometimes amazing people and sometimes people who are learning about our industry for the first time, as opposed to giving us a chance. So I'd like to throw that in as one of the possible causes of what happens in the top 100, for us to look at that. And I think that, just don't stop at anything. Ready, fire, aim. Women want to support women. But one of the things that stops us often is our own self-doubt. As a woman, we always want to have things absolutely perfect before we make that step. I catch myself doing that over and over. I see the difference between my daughter and my son. I see the difference on our team. Women want to have it perfect. Yet a man is almost programmed to just go for it. So my words of encouragement to women is just go for it and don't let anything stop you.
Thank you, Mila. I think we have time for one more question. We cannot have any discussion in the language sector without bringing in AI at this point. AI is not new to the language industry, but there is a lot of noise in news and social media. So given the current advancements in tech and changes in regulations, what advice can you provide to interpreters, coordinators, and other industry colleagues? Mila, you kind of touched on it a little earlier. Did you want to add anything?
I would add also be involved in educating people. So learn everything you can and be involved in educating people on what are the strongholds and what are the challenges of AI. Because right now, one of the things I'm seeing is a lot of uneducated so-called buyers who think that AI can solve everything. And they don't understand the shortfalls and the limitations of AI. So that's one piece. Another advice I would give, use it every day so that you absolutely feel it and you understand what it can do, what it cannot do, what different platforms can do, what different platforms cannot do, so you can explain it. And there's a lot of great benefits of using AI because it can help you do so many things faster. But also do check, because some platforms are still honest. And I had a recent experience with ChatGPT, and I could not confirm that same information from Google, because I always check ChatGPT and Google. And then I said, where did you get this information? And ChatGPT said, I just made it up. So sometimes it's honest about that.
At least it told you, I
Yeah.
suppose. Natalia, what advice would you give to other interpreters, coordinators, and peers? I think you're on mute.
You're muted.
First, a couple of the Zoom is not a Zoom if somebody forgets how to mute themselves, right? Just briefly about AI, what I think we as humans don't promote enough about ourselves is we're not just semantic-based interpreters. I believe AI would be pretty good semantically and linguistically in the future. It's not there yet, but it will get there. But the extra linguistic things, the context, the bigger picture, the understanding that, what got to me was an example when a healthcare interpreter was interpreting a discharge instructions and was focusing on that, and then heard a child, the patient, to ask mom, are we going to have rat for dinner tonight? AI would not have picked up that there's something wrong with the picture of having rat for dinner, and that would uncover the whole limitations of the family following up through the appointments and buying medications. They were homeless, they didn't have anything to eat, so the services should have started there, not with, are you going to get this medicine at what's your preferred pharmacy is. AI is not able to do that. Then AI is not able to do these connections with the real world and the implications of things in the real world. And that's an important thing that we are not speaking enough. We are focused on like, look at made mistakes, etc. So I'm glad we're talking about hallucinations and making up, otherwise knowing as and shitting or bullshitting, the technical term here. But I also want to make another point of what's important in our profession is it's not just AI that we're fighting, it's the systems and structures in some societies and regulations that are either in place or not. Right? I always envious of EU regulations regarding AI and some tech products that we don't have in the United States. But we are now coming up with examples of legislative initiatives that impact language access. And what I see our role as managers, as interpreters, is to educate the public. For example, the last executive order issued this month on designating English as the official language and revoking a previous executive order on language access. Yes, we need to educate ourselves about that. We also need to know that that order did not revoke the underlying statutes as Title VI of the Civil Rights Act and for healthcare interpreters Affordable Care Act that require and demand compliance of providing interpreting services in the US health systems. So it's important that we interpreters do look around and educate ourselves and learn about emerging legislative environments, no matter how they may seem removed from our daily jobs, and then never tire to educate our C-suite, our consumers, people in the checkout line when they say something, oh, isn't that not right to have English as an official language? Explain what the repercussions and consequences could be. That's all what we can do. It's not, it's part of just like with AI, telling about the value of humans, same thing, telling about the value of diversity, like Alison said, and of every human being having a right to be heard and understood. And that's what we are about as a profession.
Very well said, Natalia. Speaking of bullshitting, I'm sure we could have added another couple questions on tying that in with the confidence that some of our that we may experience from day to day, and that how that affects our day to day, I guess. Alison, why don't you wrap us up?
Yeah, I actually wanted to say exactly really what Natalya and Mila have said, because for me, AI is a tool and we can use it and it can really help us. But we as language professionals need to educate ourselves about what it is, what it isn't, what it can, what it can't, how it can help us and how it can't. And then, as Natalya was saying, we need to educate our clients. We need to advise them, rather. Maybe educate sounds a bit patronizing, but advise them on what it could do for them and why it can't do some of the things they think it can, why it's not a cheap miracle solution, and why it's so important, as Natalya said, that every human being can be heard and that everyone has access. AI may do a good job with English, with Chinese, with Spanish, but there are so many languages where the resources are so low that it can't possibly do anything. And we're marginalizing those languages and therefore those communities. So we really have to keep at this, that we're talking about accessibility. We're talking about what makes us human. Language is what makes us human. Why would we give this away for nothing? Why would we give it away without a fight? And I think as the professionals in this field, we're the people who have to take the responsibility for that, for learning about it ourselves, not just pushing it away, not just rejecting it, educate ourselves and advise our customers.
That's fantastic advice for everyone. Thank you, ladies. Let's see if we have any questions from our audience. Everyone who's watching live, please feel free to drop in a question in the comments. We do have one comment. Alison, back to your question or back to your response about some of the challenges from your career and being in a different place from where you grew up. Genevieve says, I believe you are referring to, what you are referring to is a third culture community. So she mentions she grew up as a TCK, third culture kid, raised in cultures that were not native to either parents. That's the world we live in today. And the work you're doing blurs those lines across cultures and capabilities for the sake of inclusion and connection. And what a beautiful world that is. Thank you, Jen.
I have a comment. I think it's very important that US and EU language industry work together. I think we have a bigger potential chance of EU legislation passing legislation labels. I think Spain already passed legislation requiring labeling AI output. I know there's great work done by ASTM, and I believe there's some work that being done in ISO requiring labeling AI and machine-produced translation content for our safety. What's in your translation? Right now, did a qualified simultaneous conference interpreter interpret this, or was it interpreted by a robot? And I think collaboration and kind of joining forces across the ocean and coordinating our work efforts is going to be very, very key. And hopefully we can also get Australia involved in this, because they've historically been leading actually in their rules and their regulations passed. So I think this is an opportunity for this type of collaboration. And I want to bring another example where AI actually endangered lives. There was a case of a 911 call, and actually use of AI frequently results in more cost than cost saving. In this particular case, it resulted in more cost than cost saving because it required post 911 call investigation. And what happened was 911 call was handled by AI. AI is programmed to cancel outside noise to just focus on what's being said, and the outside noise was violence. And so the deputies working in were not alerted that they're walking into a very violent situation, and as a result, somebody ended up being hurt. So the costs were, helping people who got hurt, the full-blown investigation, the transcription, and everything else. Was a human interpreter involved, part of the protocol that would have immediately notified the deputies that they were walking into a very violent situation. So a regulation is needed, and wherever it gets passed in Europe, I think we have a bigger chance there. So let's work together on this.
Yep. And I think we're seeing a lot of that also with accessibility regulations that are, even though spoken and written language isn't always exclusively or included in standards like EN 301549, it is being added to others that are adopting the same standard globally outside of the EU. So hopefully that just trickles back into updates of those standards. I know sign language is included in a lot of accessibility standards and regulations. Hopefully spoken and written language also gets added into the individual member states and countries globally. So that'll be interesting to see. We do have one comment. I know we're close to time, so we'll see whoever wants to volunteer to answer. From Ryan, would you say men in the industry mostly contributing or hindering women leadership? What could they do better? Who wants to take this one?
Ladies, anybody?
Well, I can say that they're not contributing, they are it, right? So the best thing they could do is to recognize that, seriously, guys, we're equal. I mean, no doubts about that. There's just zero difference in terms of the intellect, abilities to troubleshoot, to resolve things, to come up with the policies, zero difference there. So we're not talking about, combat fighting. We're not talking about diving into whatever meters. We're talking about our abilities to understand humans and to, you know, whenever you deal with something related to humans, I think we're definitely equal, and that recognition should be any anything that determines like, and proactive, deliberate looking is like, okay, why are there 7 men and 3 women in the room? Right? And I liked what Alison said. I don't care if I'm a member of the court. I don't care if somebody thinks because I'm here because of XYZ and not for my merit. I'm here. And there are 5 women and 5 men in the room now because of me. And that's what matters. And so.
And I think once we get into the room, the proof of merit or not comes out quickly. I know I see it in my colleagues, male or female, quickly. And it's a whole different topic I think we can go into. I want to be mindful of time. I know some of us have to jump to other engagements.
But I want to finish on a note that I think it's a two-sided equation. One side of the equation is very often we want to go to things that are more comfortable for us. So men go to working with other men because they're more comfortable. But on the other side, sometimes and very often we stop ourselves as women. So we have to be mindful of the equation. And I really like the question because it makes you think. So we can think on this more.
Ladies, you have done a fantastic job. I know I'm leaving inspired. I hope everyone else is too. Alison, Mila, Natalya, thank you so much for sharing your stories and guidance. And thank you to everyone who joined us, and everyone who's going to watch this later. Thank you so much. We'll see everyone in Montreal in a couple of weeks. Have a good rest of your days. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.